Hi everybody. I'm just having a problem with my chime. I was about to ring it, but something's got stuck. So anyway, no chimes today, but I am here all the same. So thank you very much for joining me. I'm going to be talking today about creating joy. Now, the reason for doing that is that, as you may know, joy is one of the highest vibrational emotions. And if we want our lives to be full of the things that we love, full of the things that we want and desire, then we need to be in the right vibrational frequency to attract those things into our lives. And if we are operating constantly at a low vibrational frequency, then we are going to attract to ourselves other things that are at that low vibrational frequency. So we want to do what we can to raise our vibration. And that's why I'm talking today about creating joy. There are other ways to raise your vibration, which I've talked about before, things like gratitude and love. But I'm talking today specifically about joy and how you can create it. Because people can think that it's something that is a bit elusive and it only happens fleetingly when something really good happens to you. But that's not actually the case. You can create that feeling of joy yourself, which then brings more good to you. It's kind of the opposite way round to the way in which people generally tend to think. So a really good first step is to practice letting go of those things that keep you in a lower vibrational state. And in fact, letting go, releasing those lower vibrational emotions themselves. And those are things like fear, shame, guilt, anger. Now, we're human beings, so we're going to experience, the emotional roller coaster. We're not going to be constantly in a high vibrational state, not without a huge amount of work anyway. And I still think, anyway, that we're all going to dip at times. But we can work on trying to release the fear, the anger, the doubt, those kinds of things as often as we can. Now, you'll have heard me say before, no doubt, if you've watched me for any length of time, that in chakra dancing we always do a releasing exercise. You will probably have seen online lots of releasing work that people are advocating doing at the time of the full moon, which was last night. And that's because it is a really good time to release all of that negativity. And once we've released the lower vibrational stuff, it's then easier to step into the higher vibrational frequencies. Now, it's an ongoing thing, because we will all have got low vibrational emotions within us, unless we've already done a huge amount of work. But if that's the case, you're probably not watching this. Things like anger, long-standing anger can get stuck in our bodies, and it takes time to release it. So, doing one releasing exercise, great, but keep on going with it, because we need to keep clearing that low vibrational stuff from our bodies in order that we can get used to, or be ready for, initially, living in a higher vibrational state and, be ready for doing more of it. So that's the kind of background preparatory work to it. But how do you actually create joy yourself? Well, it's about looking for those moments of joy in the first place. It's noticing them, because they will be there. You might think, oh, I had a terrible day yesterday, but you look back on it, and if you really focus, you might find that there were little snippets within it that you felt joy. And it's about focusing on those rather than just writing the day off as one long, miserable day. But you can create those moments of joy for yourself if you know what it is that makes you feel joy. What do you love to do? Now, it's interesting. I was at a show by Lee Harris on Sunday, and at one stage he was dealing with questions from the audience, and he asked one audience member, what lights your heart up? What makes your, I think it was something, the way he phrased it was something like, what sparks joy in your heart? But the point is, it was what lights him up, what does he find joy in? And straight away, this audience member came back with one thing, but then he couldn't think of anything else. And I so felt for him, because I was like that. Oh, about 10 years or so ago, somebody asked me at a dinner what I liked to do. I hadn't got a clue. I couldn't say anything. And that's because I had been living for so long in a low vibrational state, not really taking notice of my own desires and not doing what I love to do. So I'd completely forgotten what I love to do. Now, don't despair if that's you. You can rediscover what it was you love to do. The easiest way to do it is to think back to what you loved to do as a child, because that was when we were most like our original inner higher self, before social conditioning got us to be the way we are now, you know, before we were been beaten down by work, school and work and what have you. So if you think back to those times, think back to what you liked doing as a child, it's very likely that at least some of those things you will still like to do now. So just make a list. And it might even be that when you think about them, it sparks something off in your brain. You think, God, yeah, I really love to do that. I want to go and do that again now. Make that list and then start doing some of those things. But there will be other things that spark joy within you, things that you have discovered in your adulthood. But again, you may not make time for them. Or there may be just one thing that you make time for, but there's a whole load of other things that spark joy within you that you could do to keep you in that higher vibrational state. Sometimes it can be something huge, like you realise that you really hate living in a city, and you know it's nature that sparks joy in you, and you want to move to somewhere in the countryside because then you will feel more joyful, more uplifted every day. That's a big one, obviously, but it doesn't mean you can't do it if that's your realisation that that's something that you want to do. But there are other things, you know, for example, if you do want to connect with nature but you live in a city, you know, you could do some gardening if you have a garden. You could make a point of always going every day to walk in a park, somewhere where you can find nature. So it's about bringing those small things in that you know will create joy in you. Because the thing is that once you do that, you have that joyful moment, you just feel uplifted and it opens you out. I mean, I'm kind of sitting up taller as I'm talking about it because I know how much lighter I feel when I've had those moments of joy. And I confess, the end of last year, I was working, just hustling too hard basically, and forgetting to have in my life those moments of joy that I know I can cultivate. And I got out of the practice of doing that, despite the work that I do with clients, encouraging them to do it. And that was a big realisation for me. So I've changed that completely this year. And I have had so many moments of joy already this year because I have cultivated them. You know, I have looked for them. So a couple of examples. On the very first day of January, I got an alert on my phone that there was going to be, the aurora was going to be visible that night. On that night, I was lovely and cosy and warm inside, didn't really want to go outside in the cold, but I thought, no, I'm going to do this because I really want to see the aurora, never seen it. I went out, pointed my phone at the sky, and boy, did that deliver. And it gave me such joy. And so I had created that moment of joy for myself. I could have stayed inside and just gone to bed. And, you know, I wasn't unhappy, but I didn't have that feeling of joy that I had. And when I got back from, when I was out there, in the open air, seeing the stars and seeing the aurora, it was just such an amazing feeling. And that's what happens when you have those moments of joy for yourself. Another thing popped up a few days later. I've said for ages that I want to go and walk alongside the river that's near to me locally and take my binoculars and look at the birds because I like bird watching. I know not everybody does, but that's something that sparks joy for me. Anyway, something popped up on Facebook that there was a guided bird watching walk happening that weekend. So I was like, yes, thank you. I'm going to do that. And again, I did. And again, it was a freezing cold day and I got very, very cold, but I loved it. It was just so joyful for me. So those are just a couple of examples of things that I know create joy for me. You will have lots of things if you think about it. Now, if you've been detached from it for a long time, you may struggle to think of those things. But just when you do think of one, write it down, keep yourself a list. So don't just scribble it all down when you're listening to the video and then ignore the list. Have a list available so that when you know that you need to get yourself out of a bit of a slump and raise your vibration to being more joyful, you've got that selection of things that you could choose from. Some will be big, some will be small. It doesn't have to be a big thing. You know, your moment of joy might be sitting for 10 minutes quietly on your own with a really good cup of coffee. And if that's what causes joy for you, sparks joy for you, then do it. You know, if what sparks joy for you is being with your friends, but you haven't spent much time with your friends lately, then, you know, call them up, arrange to see them. We don't have to wait for joy to happen to us, because that's not how it works. We have to go out there and create it. And the more we go out there and create it, the higher our vibration will be, the more that we will attract good things to us, and the more of these joyful moments will come, and even more, we will spread that joy out to other people. It will have a ripple effect. So, you know, I could go on about this all day, because I do feel really passionate about creating joy in your life. It honestly makes such a difference. And I know if you're having a tough time, you can think, well, what have I got to be joyful about? You know, everything's a nightmare. Just try it, honestly. Even if you can just start with 5 minutes and then gradually increase that as the days go by, you genuinely will start to feel better. So I hope that helps. I'm not going to go on for longer now, because I'm conscious I've been talking for 11 minutes already. If you do want to know more about it, then by all means get in touch with me. Always very happy to talk about it. Just a couple more things to say. Chakra dancing tonight in Braunton. If you're coming along, please let me know. That's something that creates joy for me. And the other thing is, I've done a vision board workshop for this year already. I've had people say that they weren't able to make it and they would like to but still do one. So I am looking at other dates. If that's you and you would like to do a vision board workshop, please let me know. I can put you on my list of people who are interested, and then we can look at getting a date that suits as many people as possible. So that's it for today. Thanks as always for joining me, and I will see you again next Tuesday. Bye for now.